Yeah. This one. All right. We are going to talk about focusing on your code, not your infrastructure. My name is Martin Omander, and I was born and raised in Sweden. Lived in Silicon Valley these last 19 years. Worked at a bunch of startups as a software engineer, and worked at Google for, I really should update this, it's more like 13 years actually. And my current job at Google is that of a developer advocate. And being a developer advocate means you do two things. One thing is I'm here talking to you, telling you about excellent Google Cloud Platform products so that you can use to stand on the shoulders of Google and reach further and do cooler things. That was job number one. Job number two is to listen to you all. If you're using the Google Cloud Platform, what is working well? What isn't working well? If you're not using it, why not? What are the new features that are needed? Because I'm working very closely with the product managers who are defining these products, and they always ask me, Martin, what do developers out there say about our products? How can we make them better? So there'll be a chance for you to fill out a survey in a little bit. Also, we'll be around in the break, and I'd love to hear your feedback about the Google Cloud Platform.
Hi, I am Zoë Omander. I have lived in Silicon Valley my whole life, meaning I was born and raised here. I'm used to all the tall buildings. And I play the guitar, and ukulele is my hobbies. I am Martin's daughter, so I'm here helping him present instead of just staying home and being bored. You guys are a lot more interesting than YouTube, trust me. I am an online student, and you may groan at this and shake your heads or roll your eyes, but I'm also a YouTuber.
Zoe, can I jump in and take a photo?
Okay.
Yes. So this is my manager is like, yeah, so you're going to what now and doing what in San Francisco? Partying, hanging out? No, actually I'm working. There's an event. There are people there. You are going to help me prove this. You're going to wave to my manager, and everybody needs to wave with both hands. And if you feel like it, you can do optionally, you can also sort of mime out, please approve Martin's expense report. So I'll be over here taking a photo. Please wave both hands. There we go. Yeah, look at the camera. Look at the camera. Yes, there we go. Oh, excellent. Thank you. If that doesn't get my expense report approved, I don't know what will.
Okay, so we have a developer here. Her name is Beth. She has a mission to spread joy to the world. And how she decides to do this is through a startup called Jest. Now, this is a very funny joke once you realize what Jest does. Jest is a startup where a user, Alice in this case, sends a text message to a number and receives a joke back. Yes, very creative name, I know. And pretty much this is a very complicated system. This is one that's how many boxes?
I stayed up last night and counted the number of boxes. There are 27 boxes. Load balancers, databases, backup databases, virtual machines. Lots of stuff is needed to run a high availability website like Wikipedia.
Exactly. But Beth doesn't really want to do this. She's like, I've got better things to do, you know. Spreading joy to the world is just a fun little pastime. So instead of having 27 boxes, she in fact tries to do it with only 2 boxes. So how this works is Alice sends a text message to a SMS gateway, such as Twilio. Twilio then calls the microservice that Beth set up, and it sends back a joke. And thus Alice gets the joke. So then Beth just deploys jokes into the microservice, you know. But what code might you need for this?
Yeah, so with only 2 boxes, well, Twilio and the microservice. Has anybody here used Twilio, by the way? Few? Oh, cool. Twilio, not affiliated with Google. It's a separate company. How did you like it? Was it easy or hard to use as a developer? Easy? Yeah? Okay, cool. I found it easy too. But and Beth finds it very easy as well. The microservice, however, she will host on Google Cloud Platform. She doesn't want to manage servers. That's not her whole idea of running a company, and that's not what she is especially good at. So she will let Google do that for her. She will do it the serverless way. She picks Google Cloud Functions for that. And you can there are a number of languages you can use for that. She picks JavaScript. So you might recognize this is sort of importing some libraries in JavaScript. These are some Twilio libraries that Twilio gives you that makes it easier to communicate with the gateway. This is the node flavor of JavaScript. This is one way in which you can say, I'm declaring a function called reply, and it takes a request and a response object. Then she creates an SMS response, puts the joke inside that SMS response, and returns it to Twilio in XML format, because for some reason that's what Twilio wants. And you're done. And here is version 0.1, a fully working web service that sends jokes to users who sends SMS messages. Except there's one thing missing, isn't there?
Can anyone spot what might be missing in this system?
If we were to just upload this and run this, what would happen? Get joke, yes. Get joke function is not defined. So the reason is Beth feels a little self-conscious about this code. Please don't judge her. It's version 0.1, okay? So the code looks like this, very advanced. You see where this is going? Yes, that's right. It's a hard-coded array with some awesome dad jokes in it. Never give up on your dreams. Keep sleeping. And then here comes the actual get joke function. And all that does is it picks a random index from this hard-coded array and then returns the joke at that spot. So not very elegant code. The jokes are hard-coded, but it means that in 15 minutes, her service can be up and running, and she can get SMS messages, and she can show this off to investors and have people try out the service.
But, I mean, isn't there something missing? Would you really write this and deploy it with only 3 jokes? That might be a little bit too little. You might want a few more. So Beth thinks the same thing. She hires a writer, Charles. As you see, Charles is obviously going to be great at his job. He's manically staring at his little black book, writing a bunch of dad jokes. He loves them. So what he does is he will tell Beth, oh, I came up with this amazing joke about Germans. You need to put this in the system. She says, oh, well, okay. She puts it in the system, writes it up, deploys it, and then 5-10 minutes pass, and he comes back. Oh, Beth, you need to take out that joke about the Germans. They hate it. They don't have any sense of humor. No offense to you Germans, I'm sure you do.
Sorry to all Germans watching the stream.
We do not mean any offense. But, well, they have to take it out, so she goes back into the service, and she has to delete it and deploy it again. But she has to do this a few times an hour. It's really annoying. Is there perhaps a better way to do this?
Yeah. She could build a user interface for Charles. She could write a web app, for example, in Angular or Vue or React or any other framework. It could would take her a week to write this user interface for Charles. There would be some bugs in it. She would need to fix those bugs. She would have to spend some time on it. But she doesn't want to spend all that time on one user. She wants to serve the millions of users out there who want to get jokes, the Alices of the world. It's more important to serve Alice than to serve Charles. And then she realizes there is a user interface that another company, not her company, another company built that is built specifically for tabular data, and that is multi-user aware. And if there are any bugs in it, that other company will fix this user interface. What user interface are we talking about? Sheets, very good, yes. Google has created Google Sheets. She can put all her jokes in there, or Charles can put all his jokes in there. Here are some awesome dad jokes. Which is your favorite, Zoe?
Well, I might want to try and put this delicately for all the dads in the room, but I prefer good jokes, meaning not dad jokes. But I do happen to know that your favorite is number 10.
It is. Number 10 is the best. I'll read it to you so even those of you in the back can see it, hear it. What's good about Switzerland? I don't know, but the flag is a big plus. See, they like it, Zoe. You said they wouldn't.
They're humoring you. They're just humoring
Are you humoring me? Okay. So Charles can enter all these jokes here, all the offensive jokes about the Germans. When he gets yelled at, he can easily take them out. And Beth is no longer in the content deployment loop. This is great because she can go and build a better service or do other important things that is not administration, building admin user interfaces.
Would this make it too much more complicated? I mean, how would you code this?
Yeah, so the code will be a little different. It's not a hard-coded array anymore. So it would look something like this. We'd import the Google APIs. This is the APIs for with these APIs, you can hit various Google APIs like spreadsheets. Okay, so we have an asynchronous function that is getJoke. So the main function reply will call getJoke. Here we create a client, and it's very easy. We just give the spreadsheet scope. Also notice that we did not do any usernames, passwords, OAuth keys or tokens, nothing like that. Because this runs in Google Cloud Platform, and all the code you run in your Google Cloud Platform in your project runs as a specific user. It's called a service account, and it looks kind of like an email address. You can take that email address and just go into your sheet, click the share button, and say, I want to share this spreadsheet with this service account. And boom, no authentication is needed. Okay, then we create the API. Okay, so here's the actual call, spreadsheets.values.get. What data would she need to send to the Spreadsheets API to get the data back from the spreadsheet, do you think? Any guesses? The range, yeah, exactly. What coordinates, what cells? Anything else? Sheet number, exactly. So if you ever use spreadsheets, Google spreadsheets, at the top in the address bar, there is a long ID there. You can just copy and paste that into here. This is what she's done. And if you're really quick, and you can type this in on your phone and look up the spreadsheet, it's public, I think. And of course, just like you were mentioning over here, what cells to read. So sheet 1 and A:A means the entire A column. And then we get back a two-dimensional array. So here's a little bit of JavaScript trickery just to turn it into a one-dimensional array. And then our good friend here picking a random index and sending back the joke at that index. And now we have a user interface for Charles. The microservice hits the sheet and gets a random joke from that, and everything is working great.
It may be working great for a little while, but what you have to understand is Charles is very enthusiastic about his job. He's great at it. He writes tens of jokes. He writes hundreds of jokes, thousands of jokes, millions, however many you want to imagine a person can write. But
does he write them, or does he just copy them from the internet?
I don't know, Charles. What do you do?
I copied mine from the internet.
So maybe he's plagiarizing them. We don't know. But he's writing very many. He's putting very many in the system. But there could perhaps be a problem with the system. Does anyone know what could happen?
A limitation for rows? Well, the limitation is, I think you can have 2 million cells now. So you can have a fair amount of data in a spreadsheet nowadays. They recently increased it.
What if he's not finished writing the joke? What if he just gets half of a joke when it's synchronized?
Yeah. What if it's not finished? What if he's in the middle of writing a joke? Well, it doesn't commit the thing to the spreadsheet until he hits enter.
But that would be so funny. Just get half-written jokes all the time.
Carlos. Speed.
Yes, the system could get a little bit slow, perhaps. See, Google Sheets isn't really supposed to do millions, billions of jokes. Yes, specifically jokes. It can do anything else, apparently. But we might need to fix this somehow. Do you know of a way?
Yeah, because as you saw, the code was great for version 1 of a service, but it was kind of stupid in that it takes all 10,000 jokes, picks out one random joke, throws away the other 9,999 jokes. And it does that every time somebody hits the SMS, sends an SMS. So there are systems out there, there's software out there that is better at dealing with large amounts of tabular data. What software could that be? Pardon? GraphQL? Yep, and the software behind it driving it? There could be Firebase, a database of some kind, yeah. Firebase would work very well. Or Beth, she's used to SQL, so she puts in Cloud SQL here. There are a bunch of databases, various types of NoSQL and SQL databases you can use in Google Cloud Platform. She picks Cloud SQL. This is basically MySQL, or there's a Postgres version as well. So now everything's fast.
Well, that's great, but would this be complicated to write?
Yeah, the code would have to change, of course. We can't use the code we had before that read from a spreadsheet. So it would have code that read from a socket. So again, here's the getJoke function. This is SQL, order by rand, limit 1. That is actually a way of reading a random row from a table and only one row. It's very clever. It's super fast. And just like everybody else, I looked this up on Stack Overflow. I did not write this myself. Beth did. So super fast, and then we just need to, there's a little bit of promise here, and we need to have the database, a pool of connections. There's code on the website for Cloud Functions to do the pooling. And then you just resolve the result, and you get a joke back, and everything is super fast. So now we have, Charles is deploying jokes to Sheets. The jokes would go into, are imported on regular intervals into Cloud SQL. And Alice, when she hits the service, she hits Cloud SQL, which is scalable and fast.
Wouldn't you need someone to ask the questions, though? Just someone to, let's say an analyst, someone to get the numbers for the system.
Yeah, we're not doing any metrics here, right? We can't tune or improve the system.
So Beth, again, thinks the same thing as us. Shocker. So she hires Daphne, who is an analyst. Daphne asks questions such as, when are users most active? After which jokes do users request more jokes? Who are the most active and least active users, as you see on the screen? And Daphne doesn't know really who to ask. I mean, there's nothing set up for her, so she just asks Charles. But again, as you see by his manic expression while looking in his book, he doesn't know what he's doing with anything but his dad jokes. He really enjoys his job, so he just kind of shrugs and goes back to his little book. And Daphne's getting a little bit mad about that, so maybe she goes and asks Beth, is there a way that we could get me to be able to get the answers to these questions?
Yeah, so Daphne goes to Beth and says, hey, that microservice there, that one, every time an SMS is sent to our system, code in there executes. That would be a great place to put some tracking, because that's where we know the user's phone number, what phone number the SMS came from. We know what time of day it is. We know what joke we sent to the user. All of that is right in there inside that box. And Beth thinks about it and says, yeah, what would we do? Daphne says, easy, easy. You just add a little bit of code to the microservice to write to an analytics database that is different from the jokes database. And then I can run all my metrics on the analytics database. Beth thinks this might be a good idea, but then she starts thinking about this. The code is sort of small and tight and really nice right now, right? It's probably not a lot of bugs in it because you saw it was quite short. And you know how it is, right? You write code that is small and tight and works very well. And then somebody says, hey, why don't you just add this one little thing? and okay, you add it. And then somebody says, well, actually, could you just check if this, then that, and do this other thing? And if so, then you call out here instead of out there. And you want to be a nice person, so yeah, you add a bit of code for that. And then this keeps on happening, and eventually, that code you had before, which was nice and tight and small and had no obvious bugs in it, is now as long as your arm, and nobody dares touch it, because it has so many dependencies and so many intricate things, and it's basically this house of cards you built. So Beth says, no, I don't want to change the service. What if the analytics database is down? What if Daphne, dear Daphne, I really like you, I hired you, but what if you change the name of a table in the analytics database? Will that mean that my microservice will go down and not send SMS messages back to users? That would be terrible. Fortunately, there is a way to integrate various teams, various subsystems within a company without them having direct knowledge of each other. Does anybody have any thoughts on what that might be? Yes, excellent. Kevin, thank you. For the record, Kevin and I have not talked before, right? Yes. So you could talk asynchronously between systems. So Beth could write code that publishes a message on PubSub, like Kevin was saying. And then Daphne could write code that listens, subscribes on PubSub. Then if Daphne's code breaks, that means the microservice is not affected at all. It also means that Beth won't need to know all the details of the name of the table in the BigQuery, the analytics database. She doesn't need to know the name of all the columns. If Daphne changes them, the microservice doesn't need to be changed at all. Also, if something actually breaks up there when inserting into BigQuery, PubSub will just retry. So it's much safer to do it this way than a straight call. Also, this is great if you're planning for growth as well, because not only can you have Daphne's code here listening and subscribing to messages, you can have other teams, other functions listening and listening in and reacting. For example, there might be a marketing team who has a marketing database. They figure out who are the most active users so we can send them emails or send them reactivation text messages. That might be another team. There might be a PR team. There might be a billing team. Who knows? They can all hang off of the bus, just listen to the messages. Pretty clever, huh?
Very clever. I guess you answered my question.
I guess we should look at some code, huh?
Probably. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to create this whole system and just not tell anyone about the code, that might be a little bit shady.
Yeah, that's right. Let's look at some code. So first of all, let's look at the code that Beth writes to publish a message to PubSub. So she writes this new function here that she calls this function from her microservice. And it takes the joke and the phone number, the user's phone number. The joke we're sending to the user and the user's phone number. So first you just need to package up that data in an object. So the joke, the phone number, and the current date stamp. This is the data we're going to put out there on the bus. Then we need to create a PubSub instance. This lives in your cloud project. Then you just need to package up the data. It's a little JSON, this and that, a little buffering, and various. This is boilerplate code, that line. And then you just publish the topic. You need to publish the message. And you need to say joke_sent here. That is the topic that she's publishing on. Any subscriber, like Daphne or any other teams, they will need to say, OK, I want to subscribe to this particular topic, like joke sent. So that's half the equation. This is Beth's code. Now, Daphne's code is up there. This is the code that listens for PubSub messages, picks it up, and makes an insert in the BigQuery database, in the analytics database. So let's see what that would look like. She calls her function post to BigQuery. It takes a message and a context. Yeah. So message.data, that's where that data that we saw that was sent before, that's in that object. So we need to unpackage that with a little bit of JSON and a little bit of buffering and things like that. Two lines of boilerplate code. Then Daphne needs to create the row that actually is to be inserted into BigQuery. It happens to be the same data as was sent in the object. Create a BigQuery instance, and then in dataset X, so basically what database, and in table Y, that she's doing the insert. So this is also very tight, small code, easy, hopefully not too many bugs in this. So now we actually have a pretty cool system, right? We have an SMS gateway there. We have a microservice that's nice and tight and small, that's very quick to send back return jokes to the user. We have Cloud SQL, which can easily store tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of jokes, and very quickly pick out a random joke. We have an admin interface that Charles can use, or anybody else. Charles can even hire other helpers, and they can all work on the same spreadsheet. Google Spreadsheets is okay with that. We also have internal business intelligence supported here through PubSub. So even if the analytics database, something happens with that, the main service won't go down. And all of this is a fairly sophisticated system. This is, if you were to write all of this from scratch in like C# or Java or something like that, this would be a fair number of lines of code to make all this work, an enterprise system like this. But Beth just built an enterprise system like this with less than 100 lines of code. So JavaScript code.
Very impressive, Beth. Thank you for building this system. So
I like JavaScript.
So this system is obviously amazing, as you just heard, about a million reasons why. But serverless can, as I've heard, get very expensive. And if it's so efficient and so great, then wouldn't it cost quite a bit of money?
Yeah, so serverless costs, it's not renting a server and say, I will have this server here and it's always ready and ready 24/7. No, instead you pay per invocation of your code. So Beth prices this out. She wants to make sure when she gets really successful that she's not paying an arm and leg here. So using using this data here, she assumes the function will run in less than 200 milliseconds. She assumes it'll use less than 256 megabytes of memory. You can all set that, and you get charged for this. Database, that will cost money. With Cloud SQL, that will cost between $8 per month or $55 per month, depending on SLO or what service level agreement you want, how much RAM you want, and things like that. She could also have gone with a completely serverless database, like Cloud Data Store. That is way cheaper. If she doesn't store any data, it's free. So she would pay between $0 and $6 per month, depending on load for the Cloud Data Store. There's also Twilio SMS cost. Does anybody who use Twilio remember what you pay for SMS messages? 3 cents? Oh, okay, got it. 3 cents, yep. I don't work for Twilio, so, but I trust you, yeah. Beth will go and negotiate her own deal with Twilio. So excluding Twilio cost, let's say she gets 1 million people hits her service the first month. 1 million hits. How much would she pay to run, on top of the database we've seen here, to run the cloud function, the BigQuery, run the PubSub, run the entire system for 1 million hits? What do you think? Any guesses? Pardon? $10? $10. We have $10. $10. Anybody else? $10. More? Less? 20. 20. We have 20 over here. 20. 20. Anybody else? Anybody else? Different number? Huh? 100. Yes. And the right answer is 0, because it all comes in under the free quota. So if she gets hit 2 million times a month, she would pay, I think it's $2.30. 10 million, she would pay a little north of $20. Serverless can be really cost effective because you don't pay for that server to sit there the whole time. You only pay when you actually get traffic. So there.
So then,
So
if
then.
it's so great, does anyone use cloud functions? And I mean any recognizable companies. You can prove me wrong again. I'm asking the question, though.
Okay, yes. So who's using cloud functions? Well, we do have, there are a bunch of companies using it, and here are some of them. They roughly fall into 3 different use cases. So for example, smart parking, they use it for IoT, Internet of Things, like is this parking, they have a sensor out in the field, right? So this parking spot is free, this parking spot is free, this parking spot is free every 5 minutes. Oh, this parking spot is taken. You need a backend that can stay up all the time, that doesn't crash. We also, and meetup.com, we are all here thanks to cloud functions, actually. Meetup.com uses cloud functions. Turner, they own CNN.com, the website. So they obviously get a lot of traffic. Many, many, many web servers. They want to look at the logs of those web servers. Going in and looking at the logs on one of those servers is useless. You want to aggregate the logs for all the servers. And they use cloud functions for doing that. So real-time data processing, ETL. A lot of people use cloud functions for that. Also intelligent applications. So these are like applications for Google Home or these voice assistant applications. Google Cloud Functions is really good for that because it's invocation and response. That's it. Yeah, people are using it. Some are.
You're just like looking at me like you're like, I proved you wrong again. Well.
And I use it, and Beth uses it. In Jest. We should put Jest logo up here.
See, Beth is standing right in front of all of you. It's amazing. So now we will ask you to do 2 things, even though I know you're just used to sitting there, taking notes, drooling, sleeping, whatever you're doing. But we'll ask you to do 2 things. We'll give you about 5 minutes. So what these 2 things are, the first one, if you want to give feedback on a survey, then you can go to a link on whatever device you have. And we don't only just have this Google Home laying around, you will actually be entered into a draw to win the Google Home. If you go to this, fill out the survey, it should only take you a minute or 2. You have 5 minutes until the draw.
In about 10 minutes, yeah, we'll do the drawing.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
In about 10 minutes, we'll do the drawing for who gets to take this device home.
And then I know I have mentioned a few times we have Beth here, and she has actually given us all the phone number to test out her amazing system. So if you want to all get a wonderful dad joke, you can text this number. And I know you're all dying to test it out.
There are some amazing jokes in this service, okay?
So while you guys are getting a bunch of dad jokes and doing the survey,
Yes.
then we are open to any questions.
Yeah, Paul.
So why wouldn't Daphne simply use the Twilio Analytics Usage API to get the data that she needed?
Yeah, so the question was, why wouldn't Daphne just use the Twilio, there's a Twilio dashboard or report on Twilio?
Analytics Usage API, so there's built-in dashboards, but you can also create your own with the dashboard or with API.
Probably because Beth, or me impersonating Beth, didn't know about this dashboard. She might also want to, if she wants to build this out and do more advanced analytics that only her system knows about, maybe she would need additional data that Twilio doesn't have. But it's a great point.
But she could use the API to put it into the cloud SQL database and then do anything she wanted.
So you said she could pull like log data from Twilio with an API?
They exposed the Twilio Analytics Usage API for just such a purpose. Yeah.
Oh, excellent, excellent. She could write a cloud function that pulled in all that data.
So it takes even one more node out of the whole, a series of boxes.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. You should talk to Beth about working at Jest.
I'm on board.
You're on board. Excellent.
Really interested.
Thank you. Excellent questions. Any other questions? Yeah.
Maybe this is a nitpicky question, but you guys keep saying Beth, but it looked like the founder was Alice. Like, I don't know. Is that just me? Or
Sorry, who was Alice?
like the founder's name was Alice in the slide?
Oh, Alice. Alice is the user.
Alice is the user.
She is the one who sends the text message.
That
She's
was
the
just-
user persona that Beth is imagining.
Okay, that was,
It does look very strange because Beth is rarely ever in the actual presentation, but yeah.
That's actually not related to the cloud functions, but it was just something that was bothering me throughout the talk, I guess.
Oh,
Great, so I'm not the only one suffering in silence here.
Okay. I guess another question, though unrelated, I guess with an SMS service, you wouldn't have to worry about something like cold start times or something like that, which people usually worry about with cloud functions. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
yeah,
or-
yeah. Excellent question. So the question was about cold starts. And typically with a serverless service like this, you don't have a server that's dedicated to you. If you have a server that's dedicated to you, you pay more. But on the other hand, it sits there with your code loaded on it, and at a moment's notice, it can serve traffic. If you do serverless stuff, that means if you have no traffic, you don't pay a cent. But it also means that at that point, Google has pulled your code from most machines. Maybe your code sits on one machine or two machines only. And if you get a sudden influx of traffic, Google will suddenly need to install your code on a bunch of machines. This takes more time, so this is called a cold start. And so this code that we looked at here, cold starts, it all depends on how many libraries do you load. So it all depends on how much can you slim down the library weight. This code that we saw here, it runs typically, when it's warmed up, it runs at 80 milliseconds. When you do a cold start, the very first one, it takes about 2.5 seconds. So you have to think about, is that acceptable or not? As it turns out, the Twilio gateway is far slower than that. So in this case, it doesn't matter. Carlos.
When you talk about cold start, is that per instance that is per user that is hitting the function, or is it one server that will handle all those instances of the function?
Yeah, so cold start is per server. So if you have two people coming in right after each other, let's say 100 milliseconds, number 2 comes in 100 milliseconds after number 1, they can both use the same server. So one comes in, the code executes, the second and is done. The second comes in, the code execute is done. They can then be served by the same server. If these two users came in like 1 millisecond apart instead, then Google would spin up 2 new servers, and both of them would hit the 2.5 second delay. So it depends a little bit on how quickly your traffic ramps up. Did you have a question, Fedo?
Yeah.
Fode,
Sorry.
sorry.
Thank you. Great talk. I'm not sure if you have an answer for this, but I tried to use the Twilio on the Google Cloud, but it only supported Python through 7. I prefer to use Python, and I wasn't sure why it wasn't supporting Python 3.
Yeah, Cloud Functions supports JavaScript, Python, and Go. And I actually don't know which Python version. You said it's only 2.7? Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I was just checking, but it only says it's only supported 2.7.
Only Python 2.7. Yeah, maybe.
That could be a limitation to Google Docs. Like they have a lot of stuff saying Python 2.7 instead of 3.7, where it kind of like should be. But a lot of examples use old code, which is like losing vendor support in the next 12 months. But question?
Yes, please.
So everything that you showed so far, if I'm not mistaken, would be done from the same site, so you wouldn't have to deal with anything like cross, XSS and pre-flight and so forth. How would it work if you suppose you had GitHub pages calling to your server or anything else that would have something, perhaps even something that would intercept the options, package.
Yeah, cross-site stuff. So yeah, so I wrote a blog post on the Google Cloud blog about this. It's a similar use case, but instead of serving SMS traffic, it is serving web traffic. So you have a website, it hits an API, the API is built in Cloud Functions. So there you have like one website hitting, so this lives on one domain, hitting something on another domain. So you can just set the headers accordingly, and everything works just fine. You do have to remember to set the headers, though, for that course thing to work. So if you enter your email address in the survey, I will today or tomorrow email you, send you a message with a bunch of resources. One of those resources will be that blog post that goes into exactly this. Does that answer your question? Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Can we access the slides?
Yes, and if you enter your email address, you'll get the slides too. Yeah. Alex.
So it appears like it's very similar to Amazon Lambda functions. So did you create it as a copy, or like did you do something better than Amazon Lambdas? Okay, it's 1 million limit is kind of very similar to Amazon. Maybe you can speak about this.
So, sorry, I didn't quite get it. How similar or different this is compared to Amazon Lambda?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So I must admit that testing out Amazon Lambda is something that I wanted to do for some time, but I haven't had time to do myself. So I actually don't know the major differences between this and Amazon Lambda. I'm sorry. Neil.
Does it time out after a certain time? If you were trying to process, let's say, video, is there a time after which it would just give up because it's exceeded its time allotment?
Yeah, is there timeout? What if your this thing ran in 80 milliseconds, right? What if you have a big job that takes minutes and minutes to run? So yes, it times out after, I believe it is 9 minutes. So typically then you would split up if you have bigger jobs. Try to split them up, yeah. Yeah?
What kind of integrations does it have, like trigger-wise? What can it integrate with on the Google Cloud platform?
Yeah. So what does it integrate with? How can you trigger a function? Well, a couple of ways. You can do it with an HTTP endpoint. So when somebody hits an HTTP address, like Twilio in this case, every time an SMS comes in, they hit the HTTP endpoint and triggers the code. That is one way. Another way is that we actually saw on the screen here is PubSub messages. Another way is Google Cloud Storage events. A lot of people use this for like, okay, the user uploads a picture, an image to my service. Whenever it lands in cloud storage, then I want to run this code to create a thumbnail, for example. Those are the three main ones that I remember. I think, yeah, a couple of more questions, and then we'll do the drawing.
I don't know if this is a stupid question, but I think Google Sheets is like this compelling technology. I'm sort of curious about what the limitations are with that. I mean, you sort of mentioned 2 million rows, but I'm sort of wondering in terms of, let's just say if it was a crowdsourced joking spreadsheet, right? Like how many people could we get updating this thing at the same time? I mean, what are sort of the hard limits on the spreadsheet? And if we just were to circumvent even using the SQL table, I'm just kind of curious. Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if Grant knows.
Yeah. So I think.
Would you stand up, please?
Yeah. So I'm Grant, and I worked on G Suite DevRel for 2 years. So I believe Sheets supports up to like 5 or 10 million rows now. And for the limitations, there's I think up to like 50 or 100 concurrent collaborators at a time. That's more of a Sheets UI limitation. And yeah, you can access, I think there's basically not a set limit for reads and writes. I mean, there's a pretty high limit, I guess, for reads and writes. Yeah. Feel free to ask me any questions later.
Thank you. So we see that a lot of you have filled out the survey. The wheel is getting pretty full. Last 2 questions, and then it's time to spin the wheel. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a question. Maybe you won't answer it, but anyway. Are you using the same work scheduler like for other sources? Is it used also for cloud functions or something else?
That's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. By the way, when you talk about scheduler, to your question, a lot of people also want to run periodic jobs. So there is actually a new product in the Google Cloud Platform called Cloud Scheduler, and you can schedule that to hit functions, like if you want to run some report every night or every hour. Oh, are you? How do you like it? Is it working well? Is it not working well? Is it easy? Is it hard to use?
It is easy to use. It just sends pops up message and then cloud function invokes, and it's free if you first one are free. So it's way cheaper than running machine with dedicated cron job. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. So, great. I've been meaning to get started on that product. I haven't actually used it. So thank you for telling us. Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Hi. Is this compatible with serverless tool to create all the functions and all the stuff we need?
I'm sorry, serverless? This is serverless, yeah.
But the serverless tool used for Amazon and Microsoft, I don't know if you're aware of that.
What tools you would use to build this?
Serverless, that you put the YAML file and you create all the stuff you need.
So the way you put this together is all that code that you've seen here, you would put that in a file called index.js.
Okay.
Then you'd use the gcloud command on the command line to deploy it. And then you're done. So one file, one deployment command. And then, of course, you edit that file with whatever text editor you feel like.
But you can add like all the other services you need in that file?
Other services like other APIs and things?
Or cloud services?
Other cloud services, you would just write it in that text file. And to, for example, call machine learning APIs or cloud storage or spreadsheets, all of that goes in that one text file.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to spin? Yeah, let's see. All right. So the way this works is, I wrote this app, and the way this works is it's powered on drum rolls. Okay, so it doesn't just spin by itself. You need to actually take your hands and on your thighs. Let me hear a drum roll, please. You click it. Okay. Who's gonna win? Christian, Philip, Mark! Yay! Mark C. Where's Mark? Oh, there we are. Thank you. Thank you very much for filling out the survey. We'll be around for the break. If you have any questions at all about this, please come see us. Thank you for your attention.